Hi guys, in this video we will be talking about array functions which we have not covered in the previous levels yet. So without further ado, let's go straight to make. Before we dive into the actual scenario, let me quickly run through the function names which we will be discussing. So we will be looking at getMap, you know that, but then we will be looking at the merge function, flatten function, shuffle function, omit, pick and slice functions. And then we will conclude the function section by talking about two array and two collection functions. And as a cherry on top, I will also show you transform to JSON module from our JSON app, which I know is not an array function, but it's closely related to working with arrays. So that's why I've decided to include it in this video. In our scenario, we will be working with sample data, and the data looks like this. You will be familiar with it because you've taken level 4. So this is the country list which we were using during level 4 exercise. Then we have Portuguese speaking countries. It's the 9 countries which you may remember. Then we have country areas. So we have the country name and the area in square kilometers. And we have that for 10 countries. And finally, there is a new collection here, which is called Array of Arrays, the sample data inside with some collections and nested arrays. So this is what we are going to be working with. And let's get to it. So in the first example, let's say you want to get an array of collections of the continents and their countries. And then we will do an extra step to get a nicer output where we will focus only on the countries and nothing else. If you are wondering what the original array here is, the same set of data which is coming through the HTTP module here. I just wanted to have it here to show some references, so there's no transformation. So now the question is, at the first step, how do we get this from this? So our data set is array of arrays, and we can see that this is somewhat nested, and we want to basically get just this part in the first step. So for that, we can use get function, and in the next step where we want to focus only on the arrays of countries, we will use the map function. As I said, the original variable is just the raw data coming through this module here. So let's talk about this get function first. In order to get the sample data from that collection here, we will use the dot notation within the get function. So we will be saying, go to the data, go to that main structure with the array of collections, take the fourth item, and take sample data from it. So fairly simple, but this sample data is gonna give us another collection of arrays, as we've already established, right? So it's an array of collections with more arrays inside. And in the next step, we just want to get these countries arrays like this. So in order to do that, we are still gonna do the first step with the get function like we did here, but we are gonna wrap it into map function. And this time we will not use the map function for filtering. We will just use it for retrieving specific keys from that underlying array. And in our case, the key is called countries. So once you do it this way, you will be able to extract the countries array from this underlying array, right? So this was just a quick warm up how you can use get and map functions together in the opposite order. Because if you remember in the previous videos and previous levels, it was always about get map, and now we are doing map get. And in the previous videos, it was always about using map function for filtering for specific values and then getting something from that resulting array. But here we are using get function first to access data in a nested structure. And then from that, we are extracting the keys which we are after with map function. Okay, so let's now move to something which can be potentially new for you. And that is merge function. So the merge function will allow you to merge two or more arrays together. So here, as you can see, we have the Portuguese-speaking countries, and from position 10 here, we have the countries with areas. So now you are obviously wondering, how did I do this? And it is simple. I use the merge function to merge multiple arrays together. So if I expand the window like this, we can see that first, again, I had to use the get function to get sample data key from the second collection. That's one array. That's the Portuguese-speaking countries. We can quickly show us. So here, 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 you can see there's the Portuguese-speaking countries in the collection number 2. And then I used get function again to get sample data from collection number 3. So if I go to the source, you can see here that's the country areas. And then I simply wrapped those two arrays separated by semicolon into merge function, and this is the result. So now we have an array of collections where the collections are the individual collections from the two merged arrays. Now, as the next step, you may also want to just extract the countries because you are not interested in the areas and you want to have just countries and nothing else. So again, you could use the map function to get the country key from this underlying array coming from this module, and then you will just get the countries and nothing else. So that was for the merge function. You are not gonna use this function that often, but once you have to use it, it is super powerful. Now let's talk about the flatten function. So the problem we will be dealing now with is as follows. So we want to get Germany, France, Egypt, and Namibia from here. So you can see that we are dealing with an array, with array, with array. So it's a quite complex data structure, and somehow we need to extract just this and this without spending too many operations on the solution. So how to do this? Well, you can use the flatten function, and let me show you what the solution is. So in this case, we are again doing the map get trick. So first we are getting the sample data from the 4th collection. This is gonna give us the array of collections. And then from there, we are getting just the countries, the key countries. And then over that result, we are running the flatten function. So let me remove the flatten function now, so you see the benefit when we add it back. So now we have an array of arrays, and when we add the flatten function over it, with no extra parameters, you will notice that those arrays will get flattened. So instead of having 2 arrays with items in them, now we have just 1 array with the country names and nothing else. So when we look over at the description of the flatten function, we can see that it returns a new array with all sub-array elements concatenated into it recursively up to the specified depth, and the default depth is number 1. And I understand that this part might be a bit confusing, so let me show you what this parameter is about, even though it's shown as optional here because these brackets mean it's optional. So let's play with the depth parameter now. So for that, I've prepared a simple array, which is this one. And when we process it, we can see that it's actually 4 layers of arrays. And let's say you want to bring these values all the way to here. So in order to do that, we will simply use parameter number 3. And then I will explain what's happening. So now we went into this output from this ugly input, just with one function. If I change this to parameter number 2, you will notice that there will be one more level left here. You see, so now we have 2 levels of arrays. So basically the depth parameter specifies by how many levels you want to flatten the array. So this is by 2. Previously we had it by 3. By default is by 1. So it really doesn't matter if you keep 1 here or you don't write anything at all. Let me show you. So here we have 3 levels from the original 4 levels. If I don't do anything, meaning that I don't enter any value, it's gonna return the same result. So 3 levels here. If I enter 0 by mistake, the 0 will be disregarded and it will be treated as the default setup. So it will still be flattening by 1 level. Let me show you. So still we have 3 layers from the original 4. If, for example, you try to flatten by more levels than there actually are, let's say 10, while there are just 4 levels in the array, it's gonna stop at the maximum. So again, this is the equivalent of typing 3. You cannot really do 4 levels to have no array here because the flatten function, it is returning an array. So the max number of flattened levels in this case, when you have 4 arrays on the input, is just 3. So anything higher than 3 will still flatten just by 3 levels. So this is for the flatten function. Again, you will probably not use it that frequently, but whenever you need it, it's powerful as well, similarly as the merge function. So let's now talk about shuffle function. Shuffle function randomly reorders elements of an array. So it's yet another randomization thing which you could use in Make. In the previous video, we were using random number or second to assign those salespeople to leads. You could get similar results with shuffle function. I did not include this function in the previous video about distributing bundles, but at the end of the day, you could get similar outcomes like we did with the random number or with the current second. I just included here in this video because I feel like it's better to have it under array functions because at the end of the day, it's an array function here. So the input parameter is an array. So in this case, we are getting the sample data, which are the countries from the first collection in that original data set or data structure, and then we shuffle it. The result here is Anguilla, then second country is Egypt, Cambodia, and so on, so on. And you can see that the countries are just randomly ordered. If I run it again, we will have a different set of countries on the first positions. So now we have Japan, Malawi, Iceland, Puerto Rico. If I wanted to select just one random country, I could easily do first function, and then I would get just one country like this. Or maybe I want to get a different random country like this. All right, so simple, easy. And again, you could also use this for random allocation of bundles or items within an array. Now you have noticed I also have this shuffle v2 variable here for a reason. And the reason is that I want to demonstrate that you can shuffle even complex arrays. So when we look at the original array, which is basically the source data with our deeply nested structures, collections, etc. So I can run shuffle over the original array with all those collections and nested arrays, and it's still gonna shuffle this array. So instead of having a country list as the first collection within that array, it was shuffled, and now the resulting array has array of arrays on the first position. So that's it for the shuffle function. And again, it's one of the randomization methods in Make, which you can make use of. Now let's move to the last route here, and that's gonna be about omit and pick and slice functions. So what do they do? So omit function allows you to omit certain keys from a collection. The pick function is the opposite of it. So pick function lets you select specific keys from a collection. So let me explain the problem we will be solving with the omit and pick function. So from this get sample array and from its first collection, we want to omit continent, whereas here in the pick sample variable, we want to select the continent. So the output of this should be countries, and the output of this should be obviously continent. So let me show you the input data here. First collection, and we have just two keys here, continent and countries. And as I said, in the first omit example, we will be omitting the continent, so the output will be countries. And in the second example, we will be picking the continent, so the result will be just continent. So let me show you the outputs here. So we have the countries as the output from the omit function, and here we have continent as the output of the pick function. So fairly simple. Here you will also notice that I have pick sample not working for a reason, and the output is empty. So let me explain why I have it here and why I want to draw your attention to this. So as I said, the pick and omit functions, they work with collections, not with arrays. So this original variable is the original data structure, which is an array with multiple collections. And the pick function just doesn't work with an array. It's expecting a collection. So that's why if I selected dataset, or if I picked dataset from this, it's returning no results. Because even though it looks like it could get something from here, because every single collection had the dataset, it's not going to work because this is an array, unfortunately. So keep that in mind. And now moving to the last function in this module, and that is slice. So let's look at the description, and this is it. Slice function returns a new array containing only selected items. Fairly short, but there are a few caveats to that. So you have to input an array, that's clear. And here you have to enter the starting position and ending position. The first caveat is that those positions are based on zero-based offset. So basically, if I want to get the first item in an array, I have to start from position 0. And the second caveat is the ending position. Let me explain how that works. So here, if I set it as 1, I am basically saying with this starting position, give me all items in that array which are from position 0 and before position 1. So technically this will just give me one item. So when I run this over the result of the get sample here, I will be working with these collections. And in this case, in this configuration, I will get just the first collection. So that will mean that I am gonna get Europe. Now I got Europe. So what if I wanted to get both collections from this get sample array? So not only just this first one, but also the second one. Well, in that case, I would have to configure the slice function like this. Start on position 0, again, zero-based offset, and give me everything before position 2, again, zero-based offset. So technically we are saying, give me everything from the first item before the third item in an array. I know it can be a little confusing, but once you get used to the zero-based offset and you understand how these intervals work, it's not that bad. And I would recommend you to try this out. So let me run this now. And now we got the two collections. What if I wanted to get just this collection, the last one? So in that case, I would say start on position 1 and give me everything all the way till position 2, but not position 2 itself. So if I convert it to reality, I'm saying start from the second item and go all the way to the third item, but don't give me the third item. That means that I'm gonna get just the second item. When I run this, you can see that I still got one collection, but it was the second one from that array, which is Africa. So if I make sure that I did it right, this was the output, is the second collection in that array, and therefore this result is correct. So here I can also offer a quick, simple hack, because sometimes you might be working with long arrays and you might want to get items of those source arrays from certain position all the way to the end. And so if you want to get items from this position 1, which is technically from the second item all the way to the end of that array, you can just set crazy high ending position like this, and it's still going to work. So even in this case, we are gonna get Africa, because we said give me everything from Africa onwards by having this little trick here. And final note, you can get really creative with the slice function, especially if your positions are dynamic, because here you don't have to hard code the values, but you can map them. So you can use some mappings from preceding modules too. So don't feel like you always have to type a number. No, you can also, of course, map these parameters to have them fully dynamic. Okay, so this is for the slice function. Let's now look at our toArray and toCollection functions. Those are fairly new. Not sure if all of you know that these exist. And again, they are super powerful if you know how to use them. So for the toArray sample, we will be taking the result of the omit operation and we will be converting it to array. So toArray function actually expects collection on the input. So when we check out the omit sample result, it's actually a collection with an array inside. But this is the key, it's a collection, all right? And when we run toArray over this collection, this is what we are gonna get. So we can see that we got the key, which is countries, and then we got the actual values. So from here, we went to this shape. And this is sometimes useful when you need to, for example, figure out which keys you have in collections, especially where your keys are, for example, changing. So this was for the toArray function. Now let's talk about the toCollection sample. So the toCollection function is expecting an array on the input, and then you have to specify keys and values. So the toCollection function converts an array containing objects with key value pairs to a collection, right? So in this case, we went to this array and said, take the dataset key and use its value as the actual key, and then take sample data key as actual values and output it. So in this case, the output will be this. Right, so we have the country list with collections of individual countries. Then we have country areas, again, collections of individual countries. And then we have array of arrays with collections inside. And what happened here is that from this output, where we always follow this structure with dataset, sample data, dataset, sample data, dataset, sample data, same here, we went to this. We have the original dataset key value as the key now. And then inside that array, we have collection from those sample values keys from the original dataset. You see how it got changed? So basically, we kind of like rotated everything by 90 degrees. I strongly recommend you try the behavior of these two functions. You will not use them that often, but if you know how to use them, then one day they will be quite useful in saving you some operations. And now we are getting to the end of the video, where I want to draw your attention to transform to JSON module within our JSON app. So this module transforms any object to JSON. Again, sometimes it's super useful to be able to create JSONs out of anything and maybe send them via email or store those JSONs to a database. So in this example, we are using the module to convert the toArray sample to a JSON. So the output will be like this. We have key countries and then the actual values. So if you compare it with the input, we have keys and values, and it's in the JSON. And in this case, we are taking the toCollection sample variable and converting it to JSON. So in this case, the JSON is a bit bigger, but again, you get what you ask for, and it simply works. So here at the top, we have the country list, Here at the bottom, we have arrays of arrays. We compare it with the output of this module. The result of the JSON module is correct because, again, here at the top, we had country list. At the bottom, we have arrays of arrays. And of course, somewhere in the middle, we would have the Portuguese-speaking countries and the country areas too. So remember, transform to JSON is there for you to transform any array or any collection to a JSON, which you can then send forward to different apps, different systems, databases, whenever you want the JSON to be. And this brings me to the end of this video. So I hope this was useful. I don't personally work with all of these functions every day, and you probably won't either. But remember, these functions are there for you, and simply knowing that exist and knowing how to troubleshoot them and how to test them, even based on this video, will be super helpful for you one day in future. I promise.